The morning air was cool and still as sunlight streamed through the mango grove. The disciples sat in quiet contemplation. Each person who walks here leaves their mark, he began, his voice like the first light of dawn. But the ground does not cry out when someone walks across it. He plucked a fallen leaf from the ground, holding the withered leaf. Buddha said, "Jita, does this leaf lose its value because it no longer clings to the branch?" Jita hesitated before replying, "No, Blessed One. It still serves its purpose in nourishing the soil after it falls." Buddha nodded gently and continued, "Like this leaf, you are part of the great cycle of existence, valuable by your mere presence." Buddha's words resonated deeply with the disciples, and Jita's gaze shifted from the leaf to his own trembling hands. The worth of beings, Buddha explained, is innate, like the essence of the tree within its seed. It cannot be lost. Jita felt tears sting his eyes, not of sorrow but of revelation, as Buddha's wisdom began to settle within him. The task, Buddha continued, is not to judge yourself but to remove the illusions that obscure your view of the truth. Other disciples listened intently, reflecting on their own struggles with self-acceptance and the teachings Buddha shared. Buddha raised the leaf to the sunlight, letting its veins shimmer in golden light. Each vein tells its story, Buddha said, like your soul, unique yet connected to the whole. Buddha placed the leaf upon the ground and looked at Jita with kindness. Embrace your connection to all, and your worth will reveal itself. Jita bowed deeply, his heart opening like a lotus emerging from mud. The disciples exchanged looks of quiet understanding. Buddha paused and observed the grove. He then asked, "What makes this grove peaceful for us to gather and reflect?" One disciple replied, "The trees provide shade, the flowers lend their fragrance, and the earth supports us with steadiness." Buddha smiled softly and said, "None strive to prove themselves. They simply fulfill their purpose as part of the greater whole." Turning to Jita, Buddha said, "When you stop seeking proof of your worth, you will find peace in simply being yourself." Jita's shoulders relaxed as he felt the weight of his self-judgment begin to lift. Buddha invited Jita to stand and walk alongside him as the other disciples stayed behind to meditate. As they walked, Buddha gestured to a stream flowing nearby and asked, "What do you see in the water?" Jita replied, "The water flows freely, clear and without hesitation, reflecting the sunlight with beauty." Buddha smiled and said, "Like the stream, you must allow your true nature to flow without obstruction, reflecting its innate worth." Jita nodded, feeling a subtle shift within his being as he absorbed Buddha's wisdom into his heart. Self-worth, Buddha continued, does not depend on external approval. Just as the stream's beauty exists whether praised or ignored. They reached a small hill and paused to gaze at the view of the distant mountains and valleys. Buddha said, "The mountains do not compare themselves to the valleys, yet both are integral to the landscape." Jita listened carefully as the analogy began to deepen his understanding of interconnectedness and self-acceptance. In the great web of life, Buddha explained, each part contributes to the whole, and each is valuable inherently. Buddha's gaze softened as he looked at Jita. "You must learn to see yourself as the stream, the leaf, the mountain." Jita's eyes shimmered with gratitude as he realized the profound simplicity of Buddha's teachings. On self-worth, Buddha gestured to the sky where birds soared freely without hesitation or doubt. The birds do not question their place in the sky. They simply soar, Buddha said. Jita inhaled deeply, feeling the beauty of existence surround him as Buddha's words echoed in his heart. Buddha continued, "You must learn to soar, too, without fear or self-doubt clouding your wings." They returned to the grove, where disciples sat under the great tree, awaiting Buddha's next words of wisdom. Buddha looked at the group and said, "You must nurture self-love as you would tend to a delicate seedling. With patience and care, Buddha added, self-love will grow strong roots and flower into a source of unshakable peace. Jita sat down among the disciples, his heart lighter yet filled with newfound clarity and purpose. Buddha said, let this day's teaching be a reminder that self-worth is not given or taken but always present within. The mango grove filled with a sense of tranquility as the disciples meditated deeply on Buddha's words. Buddha himself sat in silence, radiating the wisdom of interconnectedness to all who sought it. Jita closed his eyes and felt his heart align with the rhythm of the grove. Steady and peaceful, Buddha's voice gently broke the silence. Seek not to love yourself for what you achieve but for simply being a thread in life's tapestry. The disciples bowed their heads in reverence, carrying Buddha's teachings with them in their hearts. Another day, another gathering under the shade of the great tree. The disciples awaited the Buddha's teachings with quiet anticipation. Among them sat Jita, now reflecting on the wisdom received. Yet his struggles still lingered within. Buddha approached the disciples and said, today, we will explore the practice of self-compassion and understanding through the mirror of reflection. Buddha guided the group toward the lotus pond, its surface shimmering with light as gentle ripples formed from the breeze. Standing near the pond, Buddha said, each of you shall describe what you see when gazing into the water's reflection. One disciple knelt by the pond and remarked, I see strength in my features, though some imperfections are visible within the rippling water. Another said, I see humility in my posture but also the doubt that clouds my thoughts as I reflect here. Jita hesitated as his turn came, his voice trembling as he said, I see faults in my reflection, flaws that disturb my peace. Buddha knelt beside the pond and caused ripples with his hand, distorting the reflections into fleeting forms. Buddha spoke, the water reflects without judgment, offering only the image placed before it, unchanged by approval or disdain. Buddha continued, when the surface is disturbed, clarity is lost, and reflections no longer reveal the truth of what exists. Buddha gestured toward the rippling water and said, so it is with your mind. Judgments cloud your view of true nature. Turning to Jita, Buddha said, compassion begins by seeing clearly, not through the lens of faults or virtues, but as you truly are. Jita listened closely, his heart stirring with the understanding that his self-perception was shaped by judgment. Buddha moved toward a flowering lotus and pointed to its petals, radiant and vibrant against the stillness of the pond. Buddha said, the lotus does not question its beauty, it simply unfolds, growing toward the light, fulfilling its purpose. Jita felt a pang of realization as he gazed at the lotus, understanding its silent lesson in accepting its existence. Buddha continued, to practice self-compassion is to allow yourself to grow without judgment, embracing your nature as it unfolds. Another disciple asked, Blessed One, how can we learn to see without judgment when our thoughts constantly linger on flaws within ourselves? Buddha smiled softly and replied, like the lotus, focus on your growth toward the light, not the mud from which you emerge. Buddha's words resonated among the disciples, their hearts softened by the wisdom and imagery he shared through the day's teachings. Jita knelt beside the pond once more, gazing deeply into the water's surface as the ripples settled into stillness. He spoke, when I see myself without judgment, I see a being connected to life's flow, not separate from its beauty. Buddha nodded and said, the water holds all reflections without attachment, just as you must hold your thoughts with gentle awareness. Buddha's gaze softened as he added, compassion is not indulgence, but truth, seeing yourself clearly, as you are, without fear or shame. Jita felt a sense of lightness as he embraced the teachings, his heart beginning to reflect the peace of the lotus pond. The disciples returned to their meditation near the tree, Contemplating the profound wisdom Buddha revealed through the day's reflection, Buddha stood silently, watching the sun cast its golden hues across the grove, a reminder of life's transient beauty. He spoke again, like the light on water. Each moment passes without clinging, yet remains beautiful for simply existing as it is. Buddha turned to Jita and said, "When you embrace impermanence, you free yourself from the burden of self-judgment and the chains of doubt." Jita bowed deeply, his soul resonating with the wisdom shared, feeling a newfound compassion for himself growing steadily. The grove filled with stillness as the disciples meditated upon the teachings, united in their journey toward self-acceptance. Buddha's presence emanated tranquility, inspiring the disciples to reflect deeply on their own practice of compassion and understanding. Jita closed his eyes, envisioning the lotus and the rippling water, symbols of clarity, growth, and the beauty of existence. The day faded into twilight, yet the teachings remained, carried within the hearts of those gathered under the shade of the tree. Another day, another journey through the fields. The disciples followed the Buddha toward a mighty banyan tree rooted deep in the earth. The tree's vast canopy stretched high above, sheltering the group as they gathered in silence under its shade. Buddha's gaze softened as he turned toward the disciples, his voice calm and steady. "Today, we shall learn of steadfast self-love." The disciples observed the banyan tree's sturdy roots and strong branches, marveling at its resilience through storms and seasons. Buddha spoke, "This tree has withstood harsh winds, droughts, and storms because its roots anchor it firmly within the earth." He continued, "To practice self-love, you must ground it in truth, nourish it with wisdom, and shield it with mindfulness." Jita listened closely, his heart resonating with the imagery of the tree as a symbol of enduring inner strength. Buddha gestured toward the roots and said, "These roots remind us that strong foundations allow us to weather life's uncertainties and challenges with grace." He added, "When self-love is rooted in truth, it does not falter under doubt but stands firm against the winds of fear." Another disciple asked, "Blessed One, how do we build the strong roots of self-love when our foundation feels weak and uncertain?" Buddha replied, "Self-love begins with knowing your place in the great web of life, valuable and interconnected with all beings." Buddha observed the leaves, vibrant and green, swaying gently in the breeze, and said, "Like leaves, your thoughts nourish the tree within you." He continued, "Guard your thoughts with mindfulness, choosing those that sustain growth and discarding those that cloud your vision of truth." Jita asked, "Blessed One, how do we protect our self-love from the doubts and judgments that shake its foundation?" Buddha knelt beside the trunk and placed his hand upon it, saying, "Stand firm like the trunk, unshaken by external forces." He added, "Self-love is not a fleeting feeling but a steady recognition of your inherent worth as part of life's flow." Buddha's words struck deeply, inspiring the disciples to reflect on the strength and steadiness required to nurture self-love. The tree's branches stretched far outward, embracing the sky, and Buddha pointed to them, saying, "Let your love extend beyond yourself." He continued, "Self-love grows strongest when shared, connecting you to others, enriching your relationships with kindness and empathy." Buddha then walked around the tree and said, "This tree does not ask for approval. It simply fulfills its purpose as part of the great cycle of life." Jita followed Buddha's steps and paused, feeling the stillness of the moment settle within his soul like an enduring peace. Buddha spoke again, "You must learn to stand tall as this tree, embracing your existence without clinging to validation or praise." The sun dipped lower on the horizon, casting long shadows as the disciples sat in quiet meditation near the banyan tree. Buddha's gaze turned toward the sky, where birds soared freely above the fields, their flight uninhibited by fear or hesitation. Buddha said, "The birds do not question their worth. They simply fly, trusting their wings to carry them through the wind." Jita watched the birds and whispered, "I wish to soar as they do, free from doubt and burden thought that holds me back." Buddha smiled and said, "To soar, you must believe in the truth of your being, unshaken by the winds of uncertainty." The grove grew tranquil, and Buddha's presence filled the space with an aura of calm as the disciples reflected deeply. Buddha stood and gestured to the distant mountains, their peaks steady and enduring despite the changing seasons around them. Buddha said, "The mountains do not compare themselves to the valleys, yet both hold their place as part of the landscape." He added, "You must learn to see yourself as both mountain and valley, integral to the whole, valuable in simply being." Jita closed his eyes and breathed deeply, feeling his heart align with the wisdom shared in Buddha's teachings that day. Buddha paused, observing the banyan tree once more, and said, "Let this tree be a reminder of steadfastness in your practice of self-love." He continued, "Ground yourself in truth, nourish yourself with wisdom, and stand firm against doubt as you grow steadily." The disciples bowed their heads in reverence, carrying Buddha's teachings within their hearts as the day faded into twilight. The fields stretched before them, endless and golden, a reflection of the interconnected beauty Buddha often spoke of. Buddha's voice carried through the gathering. Self-love is not an end but a way of being, a steady path toward peace within. Jita felt the lightness of his heart, the burdens lifted, and the journey toward self-love beginning anew with the day's wisdom. The banyan tree stood silent, a witness to the teachings shared, its roots deep and its branches reaching endlessly upward. Another day had passed, another step taken toward the understanding of interconnectedness and the truth of self-acceptance. He paused near a grove of wildflowers, admiring their delicate petals swaying gently in the breeze. "Do you see?" he asked, his voice soft, "how these flowers bloom without seeking praise or validation?" I nodded, captivated by the natural beauty before us. And he continued, "Thank you for watching. Buddha's teachings are always with you. Subscribe to our channel and we will see you in the next video."